crap. So I got to tell you, this is the most important video I've ever made, and we're not going to get into COVID. We're not talking about COVID at all today, and we're not going to talk about politicians at all today, which I'm kind of upset about. I kind of like ragging on the politicians. And we're not going to talk even about roller coasters, although if you look at here, it definitely looks like a roller coaster day to day. Today we're going to give you, and when I say this, I mean this literally, we're going to give you a master's degree level instructional on the stock market today. But we're going to do it in a way that anybody can understand. So you don't have to be an MBA. You don't have to be really smart. You don't have to have a business background. You could be a chuck in a truck sitting there watching this on your phone, and you're totally going to get it. And I'm going to talk to you about something today that's never happened before. This has never happened before. It's crazy. I had to do my research on this to fully understand what happened today. And when I realized what happened, it blew my mind. This is something that movies will be made out of. And it seems crazy. It's like, oh, this will never happen. And you're talking to a guy who's skeptical as all get out, who thinks that things, in a lot of respects are rigged, are worked against, the people that are out there. But today we're going to talk about something that really happened. So get ready. You might need to get a pen or a pencil. I'm going to try to make this as easy for you to understand as possible, but you might need to pause this video and get a pen and a pencil just to kind of gather your thoughts or write it down to make sure that you fully understand this. So understand ahead of time. If you have to do that, that's expected. Now, if you can catch this as we're doing it without having to pause it, man, you're a genius and you're super intelligent, and I'm super impressed. So before we get off today, one of the first things we're going to look at today is I was looking at the stock market overnight, and it was before the markets opened, and it was like way negative, right? And so I looked today, you look at what happened today, it went down. We've always been down break even. If you watch the videos lately, we broke it. It's break even roughly, a little bit over or under. But this went down 2% for the Dow, 2% for the 2.5% for the Nasdaq, and 2.5% for the S&P 500. And you look at it, it's very jagged. It goes up, down, up, down, up, down. At the very end of the day, it went down, right? Look at Nasdaq, and the same thing happened. You look at the S&P 500. It's kind of choppy, and then it went off a cliff twice, right? And I saw this happening. I saw it, it was projecting that way for the day, and I'm thinking, okay, whatever, like maybe it's an opportunity for me to buy. Little did I know that what I'm going to tell you happened. I made 5% on this, but that's nothing. At the peak of the day, at 6:05 in the morning, when the market started open, I was up 20 grand. 20 grand in a day. Would have been my best day ever if it stayed there. And I was trying to figure out, okay, what happened? Because I actually was looking, I saw the market was going down, and yet I looked at my ROBINHOOD account and it was going up. And I'm like, all right, well, that sometimes happens, but I didn't expect what I'm about to tell you happened. And let's talk about AMC for a minute. So we're going to go up to AMC Cinemas. This is the biggest movie theater chain in the country. We've talked about them on a lot of other videos, but we're not going to talk about any of the stuff we talked about before. AMC they were up. Let me see if we can show it right here. It's been kind of crazy. They were up. They started off at, I want to say $6.83 for the day. And they bumped up. They got up to $22. Look at what you see right here. Just right here when I come back. They went up 343%. Now, for those who aren't math majors, when you're up 343%, what it means is, let's say you start with $100. You now have $434.55. You've quadrupled and a half the value of your company in an hour. In an hour, not even an hour. That's what's crazy. And so they went down, they got down all the way down to, $11.59, which is still an increase of, 133%. That's where it was. It's the low for the day, was doubling their market cap, right? More than doubling their market cap. And then it kind of meandered through the day. And so I was trying to figure out what happened. So I was watching I was watching Fox Business. I was trying to figure out what was going on. I had on DVR, so I was kind of skipping through, and they had They had like the Fed chairman. I don't care about that. I'm not watching him. And they didn't really talk much about it early on. But like one of the things they were talking about was movie theaters. And they're like, oh yeah, it happened to be up 300%. And like they didn't even make a mention of it. And I thought that was really odd. So what happened today was crazy. And again, this has never happened today. And guys, I'm having to put notes down just to make sure that I understand what's going on. Okay, so like when you see me reading, understand that like I had to get my head wrapped around this. Again, I'm not a stock trader. I don't have a series anything. I don't have a series 6, 7, 24, whatever the numbers are. I don't have any of the Kobe numbers. But I'll tell you what happened today. And something that's never happened before. And I don't even know I can't even believe this happened. This is up there with Trump being elected president. That's how crazy this is, okay? So what happened is AMC, we're going to go back here. So be ready to pause this if you need to. Take notes if you need to. That's fine. I fully understand it. AMC, I mean, look at that chart. That's crazy. AMC, basically, if we look, it's going up. The kind of typical stock chart. And then COVID hit right around right here. So drop down a little bit. And we'll go for the last year. I still can't believe this. So February 20th right here, dropped down, went up. People are positive. There's a whole bunch of movies in the pipeline. It traded up even more. I think at February 20th, it was 746. Back in September, it got up to like 704. And then it kind of went down. And so it turns out what happened is this. So for the period from right here to right here, this stock was shorted 140%. And what I mean by that is, let's say that AMC issues, and I'm just going to make up numbers. They're not real numbers. I'll just be very clear about that. Let's say they have 1 million shares that are open. Like if you decide to buy AMC, they're just unbought shares, right? They have 5 million shares, 100 million of them, people bought 4 million of them, and there's 100 million of them that nobody's bought. So they're just sitting there. They're kind of on the shelf, right? Well, these short traders, certain hedge funds decided to short the stock. Now, for those who aren't experts in the markets, basically what it is, think of it as like borrowing your buddy's car for a beer run. So they say, hey, I found somebody that has, let's say 100 shares of stock. And 100 shares of stock, and said, hey, can I borrow your shares? Yeah, no problem. You just owe me your shares back within 90 days. Okay, no problem. The only responsibility they have is to surrender their stock back within 90 days. Technically, the stock is still owned by the person they borrowed it from. So it's like borrowing your buddy's car. Your buddy still the car is registered under your buddy's name, but you're borrowing it for a beer run. Well, so what they decided to do is short the stock. What it means is they would borrow the stock, they own the stock, they'd sell the stock, let's say we'll just keep even numbers here. They'd sell the stock for $20 per share. They sold the stock, they made the money, and let's just say, it was in round numbers, these numbers don't make sense at all, but the round numbers, just to keep it simple, they made $2 million, right? So they got $2 million in their bank account. But the only thing they have to do is they have to give that stock back within 90 days or 6 months or whatever it is, right? Usually it's 90 days. And so in order for them to make money, that stock price has to drop. And so what they do is they do everything possible that they can to try to drive the stock down. And so typically the more people that are shorting the stock, because they keep track of this stuff, it kind of builds sentiment that, hey, these smart people out there are shorting the stock. Hey, they think the stock price is going to go down, and people start to sell the stock, and it kind of drives the stock down. But what they also do is they go on TV. You'll see them on CNN, on CNBC. You might see them on Mad Money, see them on Fox Business, and they're going to talk about how this company is in deep trouble. Nobody ever asked them, hey, are you shorting this stock? By the way, if you ever see that, notice how nobody ever asked them that question. And so what they're trying to do is drive the stock down. And so what happens? Let's say they're successful and they drive it down from $20 a share to $10 a share. And again, these numbers don't make sense mathematically, but we're keeping it simple just for effect. They get down to $10 a share. And what these people do is they buy the stock at $10 a share. And so they make $1 million off of that stock. Remember, they have $2 million in cash. So they spent $1 million of the $2 million that they had when they sold that stock to short it. And now they have $1 million left over. So they just made $1 million off of shorting the stock. And then all they do is they hand the stock they just bought back to the person that they borrowed it from. And maybe there's a little bit of interest they charge or whatever, but realistically, they just made a ton of money. And these are hedge funds. We're not talking about like 100 shares of stock like you and I might do. We're talking about 5 million shares of stock, some obscene amount of money, right? This is where I have to go to my notes. So they shorted, they didn't just, let's say there's a million shares available, right? They didn't just short the stock they owned. They borrowed stock, sold it, borrowed somebody else's stock, sold it, borrowed somebody else's stock, sold it, borrowed somebody else's stock and sold it. And so they shorted 140%, which means, let's say, for example, you have $5 million of stock, 5 million shares of stock, and there's 100 million, people own 4 million shares, and there's 100 million that just haven't been bought. They shorted 1.4 million shares of stock, more than what's even out there. And their goal was to drive the price to zero. So if the stock's worth, you sold it for 20, you want to get to zero, put the company out of business even, and then you just buy the stock like really low, and then you make even more money. So the lower the price is, the more money you make. Enter the people from Reddit. Well, what they realized is they could put the people who were shorting the stock out. And they could actually, once the people that had to surrender their shorts, because remember, they only have the shorts for a certain amount of time. And I don't want to get into super technical details, but there's margin requirements. So if you short a stock and the price goes up, the people that are handling your short are going to ask for more money. And if you ever want to watch the Big Short, the movie, they kind of talk about this a little bit. But they're kind of like, they realize you're going to lose a crap load of money. And if you have to pay them a crap load of money, they want a down payment on what you're going to pay them ahead of time as the stock price goes up. So these people on Reddit, these investment forums, bought massive calls. And basically, there's two types of options. There's a call and a put. A call is a bet that the stock price will go up. You have a right to buy the stock at a given price, so you buy it at $10 and you could sell it when it goes to 30 and make a lot of money. Or you can do a put where you have the right to sell the stock at 20. And it's kind of the short thing where it's like, I'll sell the stock at 20. If it goes to 10, I sell it at 20, but it's only worth 10 and I still make money. Well, they bought a ridiculous amount of calls. And what happens is, people saw that sentiment in the market and it drove the stock price up. And we're not talking about 10 shares a piece. We're talking about massive, coordinated group, large quantity buying of calls, and it drove the stock up and up. And we've seen this lately, right? We saw it if you've been watching my videos about AMC or been tracking its price, we've been seeing that lately. So what happened is, it forced the shorts out because they didn't have the money to pay the people that they arranged the shorts with. And so it was one of these things where it was like crap or get off the pot, right? If you can't continue to pay them the margin requirements that they need to maintain that short, then you have to surrender the short and you have to buy that. You have to surrender that stock and buy it back. But what happened is, let's say you buy the stock at $10 or you sold the stock at $10 and all of a sudden it's sitting here at 40. And again, these are fake numbers, but 40, then you're going to lose a crap load of money and you got to pay it to these people. And they're not trusting that you're going to have this money. And so they had to surrender that short. And what happened is that sale, it forced a buyback and they had to give that stock back to that person. So you have a massive amount, the people that did the massive amount, 140%, let's say 1.4 million shares that they sold, they have to buy those on one day. Well, what do you think happened on that one day? Well, look at this. This is what happened on that one day. It was this massive, massive jump because all these people couldn't afford to pay the money or wouldn't afford to pay the money, and they surrendered their shorts. They had to buy the stock and give it back to their buddy on the beer run and get out of that short position. And the stock price exploded. How much did it explode? Well, let's talk about this. It went from about $4.69 a share, and it went up to opening the market up at $22 a share. It went up 5 times in the matter of like an hour. All right, so I got to go back to my notes here because that's how crazy this is. So basically what happened is this. It's the individuals, the small money guys versus the massive hedge funds. Think of Axe Capital on Billions. And the individuals won. I mean, how that never happens, right? It never happens. I mean, think of the amount of corruption that exists in this country, in the financial sector and everything. And yet, Robinhood beat the Sheriff of Nottingham. I mean, it's crazy. This really did happen. So what did the hedge funds do? Well, the hedge funds did a couple things because they're shady as crap, okay? I got to go to my notes here. Well, the hedge funds decided they wanted these people to stop talking to each other. And again, we've seen Trump got taken down. We've seen other people got taken down. We see Parler got taken down. We saw the MyPillow guy got banned from Twitter, which is insane, right? The guy's like the nicest person in the world. And they basically pressured Reddit to shut down the stock, like their subreddit. They went to Discord, which, by the way, I have friends of mine that are on Discord, just a platform where people talk, but there's a lot of people that do stock tips and things like that on Discord. One of my friends tried to get me on that, and it was just way too wonky and technical, and I couldn't follow it. They banned all these groups on Discord, and they called it, wait for it, hate speech. I'm sorry, have I mentioned anything that has to do with hate at all? Nothing. And they shut these peoples down because they, quote, violated their terms of service on hate speech. I mean, give me a break. They went to E-Trade. And it may not have been E-Trade, but it was like all the big major trading platforms. So I don't know if it was E-Trade, Scottrade, or whatever the big trading platforms. It wasn't Robinhood, and I'll talk about that in a second. And they stopped all trades. All of them. You couldn't buy GameStop or AMC if you tried. You couldn't sell it if you tried, which is crazy. It went up to $6.89 to $22 in a matter of a couple hours. And if I had this account on one of those trading platforms, I couldn't sell it. They froze your ability to trade this stock, which is nuts. Now, Robinhood, to their credit, thank God, again, Robinhood Locksley versus Sheriff of Nottingham. Love it. They just put a little warning and they said, because of volatility, you want to be careful when you're making trades, which I think was a valid thing to put on there. But they let me trade it. And I have an upcoming market sell that I'm going to do, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But what happened, guys, is people realized that the hedge funds were screwed. And they coordinated together. Think of it as a union or even a credit union or something like that. And they got together and they stuck it to the hedge funds. And they won. And these hedge funds lost, billions of dollars. God knows how much they lost. Because the little guy rose up and smacked him in the face. It's never happened before. So I'm looking at this going, okay, well, I was looking at this kind of around this period of time and noticing it was, I think it was up to $18. And I'm like, holy crap, it's like tripled my investment. This is great. And I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. And it wasn't until later in the day that I figured out what I wanted to do. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to sell half of my portfolio. I have 1,455 shares. I'm going to sell 723 of these shares. And I'm going to pocket that gain because this is never going to happen again. And that was my main motivation for doing that. Like, you hit the lottery. You picked the lottery numbers. Collect your money and take it home. And then the rest of it, we'll see what happens. My wife was like, well, maybe it'll go up. Yeah, maybe it will. But I'm just going to pocket the gain and we'll see what the rest happens. So I'm not going to go into any huge detail. We'll talk about numbers a little bit. But that's what happened today. And I was going to name this Holy Crap, but I thought, it's better to name this the most important video I ever made, which is definitely accurate. But what happened is when it got up to $22 a share, check this out. It was at $6.89 before. So I was, still doing really well. The stock was moving up, and it was moving up because all the shorts, people were putting calls in, and it finally hit that critical mass. And I went from 113% to 580%, which makes it my number one performing stock. And it went down to 1461, which is where it's at right now. It's still up, more than quadruple of what we're doing here. So I'm sitting here at 120% of what I bought all these stocks from. Overall, for my initial investment, I'm just about to quadruple my investment. And more importantly, as we go to this, we are sitting here, we're aiming at about 308,000. We're at 157. So we're more than halfway. So again, this wasn't really what I meant, to be fair, if we're going to play cards face up on the table. This wasn't what I meant by saying that the big money was going to be made in the next 4 to 6 weeks. I didn't anticipate this happening. But the people who are individual investors just stuck a shiv into the heart of the institutional investors. And the people who are well-connected hate it. So what do? I got to go to my notes. They pressured social media networks to censor anything that had to do with this, Reddit particularly. They went to Discord and pressured them to remove the group, and they did, unfortunately, on the grounds of hate speech. I mean, give me a freaking break. And then they went to the institutional platforms that are like, the E-Trades, the Scott Trades, the Morgan Stanleys, things like that. And they stopped all trading on an individual stock, which is crazy. So with that being said, I'm not going to tell you I told you so, because I didn't tell you so. But I will tell you this. I had a big stake in AMC because I believed in that company, what it's doing. We've talked about all the fundamentals and why it's important. But the little guy rose up and stuck it to the hedge funds today. So hopefully, if you've been following, and I guess this is where I'm going. If you've been following my videos and I'm telling you what to invest in, you would have made a crap load of money today. And if you're sitting on the sidelines going, well, I don't really know if AMC is going to do well, I walked you through why it's a no-brainer. I think 1 or 2 videos I literally went through, and I walked you through why this was the biggest no-brainer stock in the world. And I didn't know it was going to blow up this fast, but I did know it was going to blow up. Guys, get off the frickin' sidelines. Get your stocks in. The big money is still yet to be made. So with that being said, if you got any questions, let me know. But I'm watching this overnight. I have a market. I have a market order. Got to color this yellow. I have a market order where we're selling half of the AMC stock. We'll make 10 grand on it. Maybe it'll go higher. We'll see where it's at. And I think it's at 14. We'll just put 1461 because these are just marked up. So I'll make 11 grand on that. And again, this is going to law school, and it's going to pay half my tuition for the first semester right there on this one sale right there. But we're at 157,000 so far. We're aiming at 200,000. And then we have a couple pending orders for Hall of Fame, and then the next ID, and then some other ones we're looking at. But right now, I just want to see where this one goes. If this one clears at 11 grand, I'm probably going to up Next ID and Hall of Fame and put some more money into those. And again, this money isn't going to sit on the sidelines because the amount of money I'm paying for market interest is nothing. But we're going to put heavier positions in on some of these that we see here. So with that being said, let me know. But again, the craziest day that I've ever seen. I've never seen like this happen today, and it's the most important video that I've ever made. Guys, pay attention to what I'm doing. It's going to make you money. All right, I forgot to talk about this, so a little bonus on the end of this. Just as a humorous thing, I saw this video earlier, and I know it's on Infowars, and I know some of you guys, have a thing about Infowars. I don't really care. I look at probably 10 to 12 different platforms every day, and I saw this over a number of platforms. They're now telling you not only not just to wear one mask, but to wear 2 masks. Now they're saying we should wear 3 masks. Like, is this one of these things that is like, if you ever seen Something About Mary, again, made by the Farrelly brothers, who I met Bobby Farrelly, fun dude. And he told me some insider stuff about Something About Mary, but like, is this like 6-minute abs, but then 5-minute abs is better, and 4-minute abs and 3-minute abs? Like, it's just nuts. I saw that, and it's absolutely crazy. I just think right now there's a matter of like more people every day, honestly, and this is not a partisan thing, just need to stand up and say, BS. Like, this is a joke. What are you going to say? 7 masks are even better? Like, double mask is 75%. Triple mask is 90%. What are they going to tell you? Put 5 masks on and it's going to be like 97%. I mean, give me a frickin' break. And one of the things I also, on a story of something fun, and again, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, you're going to appreciate this. So if you're a Trump guy, I'm a Trump guy. you're going to see the absolute hypocrisy of this. And if you're a Biden guy, you're going to want to smack the guy in the head. So I saw this yesterday, and I made a note of this, and I wanted to share this with you guys. Biden, the White House, made the move to endorse Juan Guaido after Trump issuing parting sanctions. So Trump, I don't know the exact sanctions left. I'll just be honest about that. But anyway, Trump was very adamant that Juan Guaido was the president, and Biden came in and said, yeah, we agree with it. We definitely think you agree with it. So what's the big deal? Well, I have been sitting here getting lectured by the media for the last 2 months that Trump didn't win the election. If you say he won the election, then you're a conspiracy theorist and, you're a bad person and it's crazy and you're anti-democracy, right? At the very least, you're anti-democracy. Well, for those who are paying attention to Juan Guaido, and I did back in the day, so I actually kind of understand the basis of this. Juan Guaido was a guy who was in the legislature in Venezuela, and he decided, I'm going to stand up, which is honestly risking your life in Venezuela, and I'm going to run for president, and I'm going to run against Nicolas Maduro, who's the dictator of Venezuela. And he lost, but honestly, they rigged the election. I mean, that's what the U.S. even said. The U.S. government said that election wasn't fair. It was rigged. It was everything Trump said about the election in 2020. I mean, it's literally exactly the same. And if you want to see exactly what that is, watch Narcos Season 2, and you'll see exactly what he said and what Trump said and what Maduro said and everything, right? Well, Biden just said, and just pause this video if you need to, that Juan Guaido, the guy who ran for president, said he won, said the election was rigged, said that the computers did the rigging and that it was ballot box stuffing. Biden just said that he's really president and not the guy who officially won. Pardon me for just being a little incredulous. Isn't this exactly what Biden was criticizing Trump for? Biden said Trump was mad because Trump was saying that the election was rigged, there was ballot box stuffing, and there was shady stuff happening, and the computers basically switched votes over. And yet Juan Guaido had the exact same thing happen to them. Biden said, yeah, you're right, that exact thing happened. And yet when it was criticized in the U.S., Biden said, you're anti-democratic, you're a conspiracy theorist, and you're a bad person, and you don't believe in democracy. And yet he's saying the same thing about Venezuela. So again, it goes back to my video from yesterday. If you believe anything in the media, just understand they have an agenda. And honestly, they're some of the dumbest people in the world. I used to work with these people. My wife used to be a TV producer. She'll echo the same thing. They're not exactly Harvard professors doing this. But it was just really interesting that I saw this. And it's like, this is one of the most tone-deaf things that I've ever seen before. So there's no real market stuff behind it. There's no stock advice from it. But between these two things where we're talking about double, triple masking and quintuple masking and octuple masking and this, it's an absolute joke. And you realize that if you believe everything that you read in the media, especially these things that are coming out on a daily basis, especially when you're not taking mental notes on what they said like a couple days earlier, I'm not saying you're a moron, but they think you're a moron. So don't validate their opinion, because I know you're not a moron, but they think you're a moron and they think you'll fall for anything. So when you read something, make a mental note, fast forward a couple days and see what they say. And a lot of times it's literally doublethink. And if you want to know what doublethink is, read the book 1984, and they do a specific treatise on what doublethink is. So anyway, with that being said, deuces. To get more information on the sales cheat code, go ahead and click on the subscribe button below. Also, down below in the video description, down there, there's a link that takes you to our website that gives you additional content, some additional freebies that we have, and gives you information on some programs that we have that have been proven to help people to make sales easy so that you can make the kind of money you want, live the lifestyle that you've always wanted, and not have to struggle in the process. And what might be the coolest thing of all is you don't have to put much effort into it. It truly is a cheat code that most people don't know about. And it's a cheat code that can change your life today. So click on the link below and let me help you start to experience these results starting right now.